So I was born at the end of the 80s, 1989. And in the 90s, one of the things that defined my childhood and influenced who I was is unironically video rental stores. Back in the 90s, about probably like a minute and a half walk away from my house, there was a video rental store called Video Town, and I spent many years there, constantly renting games. They had Super Nintendo, they had Sega Genesis, they had Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and it was like a holy grail at the time, and it was such a fantastic time to be alive because your generations now and into the future, they're never gonna know what this was like, and it was a really good experience. Like, for example, 1995, I go down there, I go inside, they're playing 90s music, like Eurobeat, similar to Initial D, and I would go inside, make a left, make another left, and then I would get to the gaming spot. I would grab Mega Man X2, grab maybe Super Mario RPG, maybe Kirby Superstar, this Out of This World, Super Turrican. Anyhow, I remember he used to rent. I used to go to him and he'd be like, "Oh, you rent two, you get one for free." And we would rent movies sometimes. My parents were the ones that rented the movies. I rented the games, and then I would have one day to play the game for about maybe $2.50, and then I got to return it the next day. And I would give him because he would have all the boxes for display for all the game boxes for display, empty of course. Actually, he had the instruction manuals still in there. So I think people were stealing them at the time. So I would give him the game box. He would go to the back, grab the game, give it to me in some plastic container that he would have it in. Give me my slip and said, "Thank you, come again." I remember his name was Mr. Sam. It's an Asian man that worked there. And then I would go home and just play the game nonstop. And I have many good memories of that place. I wish that you guys who were born in the 2000s could experience that kind of thing, because they all shut down, they all closed down, they went out of business. But it was a very fun thing to go through. And I remember I would go to the gaming aisle. I'd pull every single box out and read it. It was like Out of This World, Lemmings, Super Turrican, Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, and I would just read them, as my parents would be going around trying to pick a movie to watch. And I never rented Sega Genesis because I never owned a Genesis. I know a lot about it now, but at the time I didn't know anything about Sega Genesis. And I would look at the boxes and be like, oh, like Vector Man, Earthbound Engine 2, Genesis port. And I look at it and I'm like, whoa, like, I don't know what this is like. And then I remember towards the end I would be renting Star Fox 64. I would rent the Rumble pack. Those of you who play N64, you know about the Rumble pack. That was a lot of fun. And also clearing Star Fox 64 so well that you won't unlock the where you can walk around with shooting the gun in multiplayer mode. And I remember playing what was it? Was it Donkey Kong 64? No, it was a Majora's Mask. I remember I used to rent a game that required an expansion pack. So they had the expansion pack also there for rent. So I had to rent that too. But I can't remember what game it was. It might have been Majora's Mask. I'm not sure. Yeah, but they had Ocarina of Time. That was my introduction to Ocarina of Time. F-Zero X. Oh man, they had all the classics there back in the day. It was an amazing time to be alive, And I mean, nowadays you could say it's easier because people have emulators. They can play literally whatever they want. But that freedom to a certain extent makes people lazy and just not want to do anything. They're like, oh, I'll do it later, and it turns to years. Whereas when I was a little kid, it was like, I'm going to walk to the store, and I have even easier access to all these things, and I'm just going to grab something and play it. I do have an embarrassing story, though. I remember I rented Donkey Kong Country 2. That was before I owned it. And when I played it, I accidentally picked two-player mode. And so I beat the level, and it switched to player 2. And, when you're player 2, the color switched to purple. But I had no idea what was going on. I thought the game was bugged or defective. And it's a shame because my parents were gonna watch me play it at that moment, and I couldn't because I didn't realize I had to give it up to player two. So I thought the game broke and I returned it. That was a very embarrassing story. What else? I remember when I first rented Super Mario RPG, I hopped on a file that was already at the factory, and this was my first RPG. See, Super Mario RPG was my first RPG, and when I played that game, it was like a whole nother world. I had no idea what I was doing, so I walked around, and I don't remember if I fought Smithy or I fought one of the henchmen along the way, and I was like, okay, this is my character. Why am I standing still? Why is there a XYB, what was it, XYBA function? And I'll look, I would press Y on Peach, and I'll be like, what the hell? What are these moves? Wait, B, run, defend, X, items. What do these do? A, attack. Okay. So it was very fascinating when I played my first RPG. I think it was 90. It was probably the same year the game came out, which is what, 1995, 96. And I was just so intrigued, like, wow, like, so this is what an RPG is like. I had no idea. And then eventually, he started selling these games because as the years went on, people weren't renting them anymore. People were focusing more on the newer things at the time, which is what like Xbox or PS3. I don't know much about those, but he started selling some of the games. I bought a few of them, like Earthworm Jim 2. That was a good game. But yeah, eventually one day I saw him wheeling movies out of his store, and I didn't think anything of it. And then later my brother told me that, oh yeah, Video Town closed down, and I was like, oh no. So it was a very precious time in my life. I'm very grateful for the memories of being able to experience a video rental store back when they had VHS and Super Nintendo N64 games, because that is a once, not just in a lifetime, but in an earth time experience, because that's never going to happen again. It was a beautiful moment, and I'm very grateful for it. But now everything's on emulator, so yeah. But I just wanted to talk about that because it was a very critical time in my life where it influenced me in a big way, and I wonder how Mr. Sam is doing nowadays.